Alrighty then. So Retro Gamer Online, as you know, a longtime partner. Funny enough, it's been a couple. How long has it been now? A couple months now.
Few months now, yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
really, the reason I always, well, I don't say it enough, but the reason I liked it is just because everybody likes retro gaming. I grew up with the older game, and the way you described and put the emphasis on detail, which I'm pretty sure I'm gonna say a lot nowadays
mhm.
in the interview, was really cool. So I was like, let me expand. I still actually want to continue expanding, but you were the first expansion from my
Oh,
original
thank
core. So I was like, oh, and that's going well. So now I want to do better as well. But one thing I always forget, and I told you earlier, your name. I always know you as Retro Gamer Online. That's you. But your
you.
actual name,
Is Sean.
Sean. Alrighty, Sean. So,
I was named after Sean Connery.
well, that's it. You have a tough name to live up to, but you will do
Yeah.
it right. So, you actually have some collections to show us. Two of your favorite.
Yeah, like I said, I took out the collection I have the most games in, and excuse me while I grab them all. These are all my James Bond games. I have about maybe 15 or 16 of them spread out across. Uh, don't fall, please don't fall. I have them spread out over 5 or 6 different consoles. I even have a couple of games that predate GoldenEye,
Wow.
including James Bond 007 on the ColecoVision. Found this randomly for $5 once at a Japanese bookstore that's in my area called Book Off. So also I find a lot of decent imported games too. Like I found a complete in-box copy of the Japanese version of Shadows of the Empire for $15, and it looked like it's never been touched. So for all those of you that like to game hunt in the wild, you'll find some really cool gems every now and then.
That would
The
be
other
cool.
one I also
Hmm.
the other one I also want to point out is this one, James Bond 007, The Duel
On a
on the Sega
Sega
Genesis.
Genesis. I didn't even know that existed.
I didn't either until I looked into some of the old Bond games. Like, growing up, I always assumed that it all started with GoldenEye. But then, God bless the internet, did some digging. I find that there's all of these James Bond games that predate GoldenEye, predominantly on old PCs. Also, most of them are they all seem to be in Europe and very very hard to find these days.
Sure, sure. So would you say that's your favorite collection then, or the one you're most proud of?
Yeah, because I mean, I don't have any of the handhelds or the aforementioned uh, PC games from the '80s, but I pretty much have all the modern ones that came out after GoldenEye, and
Okay.
I've played all of them to death. I've beaten all of them twice over.
Now, so you weren't the first retro gaming account I saw, but I've noticed that, or have you noticed that it's becoming a lot more popular nowadays for a person to start retroactively collecting?
Yes, it is, and I joined well into it. I didn't. I am by no means a forefather of this. Um, but I got into retro gaming after watching a few episodes of the Angry Video Game Nerd, probably in 2008, 2009, give or take. And he was talking about all these old NES games that I remember as a kid. And I was thinking, oh yeah, I remember playing that or that or that. And it inspired me to go out and try to hunt them down. And it was kind of weird. I actually started collecting at a time when I could ill afford to. I was actually out of a job for a couple of years right after the economy tanked.
Yeah.
And in those days, people in their late teens, early 20s couldn't. It was really hard for the millennials, quote unquote, to find a job. So I kind of passed my time buying video games that I probably shouldn't have. You know,
Where the addiction is real. So after watching the Angry Video Nerd, I think you mentioned that whatever he was saying, you felt like you had the knowledge already, or you knew the same things, you had played the same things, so you said I could do this
yeah,
too.
exactly. And this whole thing is, I'm trying to make my own YouTube channel. That's what all this has been for. But then I finally got a smartphone a couple years ago, and a friend of mine told me about Instagram, and I was like, okay, I'll, help get the word out that way. And then the Instagram thing just kind of took a life of its own. I mean, I'm at about like 1,700 followers. I never imagined I'd ever get that much. And so I hope once I launch the channel that I can get everybody who follows me to get interested in, clicking on that little YouTube link and to check out my videos whenever they come out.
Yeah, that's cool. And you actually have a really pretty good set schedule now, right? I think almost every
Yeah,
day.
I actually took my inspiration from you on and your daily posts. Um,
Uh,
it started with just the complete and the CIB Sunday. I started. That's the big one that I noticed a lot of people doing is they show off a game that they have, especially a cartridge game. Where I don't know about you, but when I had cartridge games, I would throw away the box and the manuals, maybe keep some of them lying around, but so finding a game that's complete in box these days is getting bloody impossible to find almost, and if you do find them, they're ridiculously pricey.
That's true. I don't think I've ever, unless you know what, I lied. The only boxes I may have ever kept would be the Pokemon games, just because they
Right.
look nice, they look pretty cool, you know. And I was collecting the cards, so it just went hand in hand, and you could have the box and the cards right there. But
Yeah.
that's pretty much the only thing I've ever. I didn't even save the boxes for the consoles, which I think I feel like I should have maybe.
Oh, yeah, I definitely should have too, and because of that, like I said, when I started collecting in 2009 or so, I was like, oh, I should hang on to these. So I have a lot of consoles that didn't, whose boxes didn't survive, but I still have my Dreamcast box from when I got it back in like 2000 or so. Still have my PS2 box on top of my shelf.
No,
Um, and my boss, actually, from my work, I never expected this to happen. My boss gave me his old Atari from back when he was a kid,
really? Wow. So
and he just gave it to me one day.
that's awesome. So before you started collecting, how many system consoles did you own, and what came after?
Some of the ones I hung on to still, I still have my Nintendo 64, so that's still the same one I've had since I got it, Christmas of '96. That's the oldest one that I still have originally. Like my NES and Super NES, I repurchased a few years ago. So up until that point, I probably only had about three. I had a PS2, which was the at the time still relatively current. I had my Dreamcast collecting dust, and I had my N64. That was about it. But then I started watching Angry Game Nerd episodes, and I was like, oh, I should try to hunt these down because that's cool. I really want to play Super Mario World again, or
Okay.
God, I love Super Mario Brothers 3, as you can see.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what now? How many do you have in total? Can you count them off the top of it? I know it's quite a bit.
Well, I'm looking at my modern setup in the main living room. I got one, two, three, four, five set up to my flat screen. I have a PS4, PS3, PS2, my girlfriend's Nintendo Wii, and my original Xbox is over here. And then behind me, I have 10 consoles back here behind me in my what I call my retro corner.
You even have a retro TV to go with it too. Try to
I
keep the.
do, yes. A hand me down from my mom, yes.
Now, was that like intentional? Did you want to keep the authenticity of the retro, or?
I did, and also at the same time, I still want to play Duck Hunt, and NES zappers don't work on modern flat screens.
Yeah.
It's something about the liquid crystal versus the old-fashioned CRTs. Like they just don't respond to when you click the
Mm.
trigger on the gun. I don't know. I'm not a TV engineer or anything.
Okay, so out of your retro games, do you play any like not maybe daily, but regularly? Is there one?
Yeah, I try to, but right now I actually just picked up my PS4 last month, so I mean,
Oh, I think you got the Battlefront edition, right?
I did. I just bought Battlefront, and I like it. I have some issues with it, considering, or
Told you technical difficulties were bound to happen. I warned you.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, and I forgot we were mentioning. What were you? Oh, you were talking about Battlefront because you got the Battlefront
yes,
edition of the PS4.
yes. And like I said, like most people, I'm sure I was waiting over a decade for a new one to come out. And I still remember getting Battlefront 2 on launch day back in the day, and so naturally, I was super stoked about it. And like I said, it's a really fun game, but I just don't like the emphasis on multiplayer. I've never really been an online gamer until recently. I didn't even get a PlayStation 3 and a 360 until two Christmases ago. So I completely missed out on the online gaming boom. Really.
It really did take off just a couple of years ago. Before, you would invite your friends or cousins over that happened to have the same game or like the same game, if it even had a co-op mode. But that was about
Right.
it. Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I have lots of memories playing multiplayer, but the thing is, the other players were sitting on the couch next to me. You
yeah.
know,
It is definitely a different age.
yeah,
But
I came from a different time.
we both did. Now, did you get anything else for the PS4, or is it just Battlefront?
I have about 5 other games, but most of them I actually are duplicates I already have on PS3. Like I got Wolfenstein, Alien Isolation, which is a bloody scary game. Holy crap!
Yeah.
I really like that one, and I got like a couple of Call of Duty and Battlefield games.
Okay, that's cool. So now that you've had, our current gen versus old gen, like, well, you're not too happy with Battlefront, but there's a huge difference. Do you still think you enjoy gaming more on the retro games? Is it, or just it's different? Its comparisons are too different to make.
It is kind of apples and oranges to a certain extent, yes. Um, but there's a part of me that still prefers the retro consoles. I mean, yeah, the graphics on a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One look amazing, but graphics aren't always everything. Sometimes it's the gameplay and the fact that game companies are focusing more on multiplayer and DLC versus make a good game the first time and then see if it works. If it doesn't, you make another one or something instead of patching and trying to clear up your mistakes and hide your tracks, so to speak.
It is definitely a difference, Though,
Hmm.
you're right. I think a good example would be the Elder Scrolls Chronicles. They made one full game, but there was no, the DLC was well, the one when I got it, it was like the Game of the Year edition, so it had all the separate games that went tied along to the original game. So I was lucky with that.
Yeah.
But you really did have to buy a completely separate thing just to
Hmm.
continue the series. It was really crazy.
And also I was thinking about even going back to the Battlefront model. Okay, so the new Battlefront comes out to positive but meh reviews. Um, and I'm sure that whatever mistakes EA made, they can always fix it in either a patch or a DLC. Whereas in the old days, if you messed up, you had to make a sequel. Like Battlefront 1 versus Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 is really just an expansion of the first one. Yeah, there's more planets, more characters, more stuff to do, but gameplay-wise, it's exactly the same. So I'm thinking, these days, if they want to make a Battlefront 2, they'll just do it all in DLC or something, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's how. Well, Destiny, like, that was another big hit earlier this summer, and with well, it came out November, I think. The Taken King downloaded content, which just an addition to it. It always keeps adding on top. Definitely is different. I mean, if the DLC would be good, I guess you wouldn't mind paying because it's like buying a separate game. But when you feel like, as you said, that it's basically the same thing with just maybe a little bit more of a story, and you're still
Yeah,
paying just about retail price, then it becomes a problem.
yeah, and when I bought my copy of Battlefront, of course the GameStop guys are they're trying to sell the season pass, and the season pass is $50. That's a whole separate game right there. You know,
Yeah,
so I'm
it's
just thinking like instead of making a second another Battlefront 2, I guess they gotta call it. They can just do it all in DLC. I mean, unfortunately, that might be the way to go. Instead of making
completely separate.
a completely separate game and then adding little stuff here and there. But my also other little gripe, I guess, is not enough single player. Like I said, they focus mostly on multiplayer. All the meat of the game is in multiplayer,
So
and that's
I've
fine to a certain extent. But
Yeah, so I have heard. I haven't gotten it yet, but that's mainly what it says. Multiplayer, while fun to play, is the bulk of it, but the storyline they really wish could have been better. I probably would
mhm.
gripe about it too because I feel like the story of Star Wars is so vast
Oh
that
yeah,
you could definitely make a really hefty multiplayer story on just the history there and still
right.
have a decent multiplayer because multiplayer, it's going to be fun regardless.
Yeah,
But
and I'm thinking. if they really want to make the game good, and they can fix their mistakes with DLC and patches. So here's my proposal, EA, if you're watching this, listen up. Um, please put in more single player content, and also make a classic Battlefront mode, either single player or multiplayer. Just give us the classic capture the command post and kill everything that moves scenario. That was perfect. It worked then, it'll work now.
Hopefully they do listen because, like I said, I haven't gotten it yet, and I'm gonna get it regardless. But me being a story lover, like I'm an RPG player or MMORPG.
Yeah,
I love the
RPGs are great.
so
You can't.
being the story lover that I am, I would want like an in-depth campaign. Like I want to know everything that's going on anywhere.
It's not like they can't make a great Star Wars story out of because there's so much expanded universe content. Is bottomless on what they can come up with, and they've made some great Star Wars games in the past that have nothing to do with the movies, and they're just as classic as the movies themselves.
True, very true. Okay, so being the retro collector expert that you are, what would
Thank
you
you.
recommend to a person just starting off?
Starting
What
off collecting.
starting off collecting? What system would you say is the most affordable or retro system? Or what have you seen?
Well, definitely the NES. I actually purchased an NES off of eBay. It was about $65, and it came with the console, uh, two con- two controllers, a zapper, and a copy of Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. And again, $60. That's a brand new PS4 game right there. And also, I also recommend not sticking solely to eBay. Most of the fun is in the hunt. I recommend swap meets, game stores, thrift stores, stay away from I don't want to say stay away from, but try to, like I said, just try to avoid eBay, just because you'll have to pay for shipping, and then someone will post online, here's a copy of Super Mario Brothers 3, super rare, pristine condition. I don't, it's not super rare. They've sold 45 million copies back in the day, so it's not rare.
You'll
You know,
find one.
yeah,
And have you been to these swap meets or any local
I
things?
have. Every Saturday and Sunday. Actually, I haven't been able to go last few weeks just because life happens. But every Saturday and Sunday at my old college, on the weekends they take up the one of the parking lots, and it just becomes a swap meet. It's not like a real official swap meet. It's just people from all over. It's like a huge garage sale almost.
That's cool. And you've picked up
And
items there?
yeah, I have. One time I got very, very lucky, and I scored a Sega Genesis console, a Model 1, the big one that says 16-bit right on the front cover. I found that model, 6 games, all complete with the cartridge, manual, and case, for $35.
That is bad.
So yeah, it was a hell of a score. Now it was missing an AC adapter, but I managed to find one of those online for, $6.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of you might get lucky, you might not.
Yeah, living next to the city, while you could find, whatever you'd like, you're probably going to pay a little more expensive, a little more than
Mm,
you would at a local mom and pop shop. So I guess that's one downside of living in the city.
yeah.
So now I know you said your whole point of going to Instagram was to begin on your YouTube account. Are you still planning on bringing it? What are you planning to? What are your plans for the YouTube account?
I follow a whole bunch of other retro gaming YouTube channels. Like I said, and it all started with the Angry Video Game Nerd. I'll never not become a fan of his. Um, and I also got into it because of Classic Game Room, and I was really, really sad to hear that he might stop making game videos on his channel, because I really got a kick out of his stuff too. And he was posting games on a daily basis. If you look at his posted videos, he has 5,000 videos, and they all each average about 500,000 views.
Mm.
Um, so I've been watching a lot of fellow retro gamers on YouTube, and I'm kind of like picking and choosing, or kind of taking notes on how I can produce my shows. Like, oh, I do that. Oh, I never do that. Kind of thing. Just kind of picking and choosing. And I'm still kind of developing a formula and a format. I got my girlfriend to help me out too. She's She actually has a bachelor's degree in filmmaking,
Wow.
and I went to that was my major too. So that was actually one of the things that helped us hit it off and us into a relationship in the first place.
Ah, that's pretty cool.
So
So you have a head start on you. I have, still winging it, but once you find a steady rhythm, which I think you're well on your way to, you'll catch on. So hopefully,
and like I said, you got you know uh, you're way ahead of me as far as the YouTube stuff is concerned and your Instagram account. I was very, very flattered when you contacted me and said, "Hey, want to be a partner?" I said, "Yeah, of course." I
like I said,
was extremely flattered.
yeah, I like your account. You know your stuff. It's always nice to have someone to reminisce of old games with, and I feel like as the popularity grows with retro gaming, it'd be nice to have someone who really knows their stuff. You don't only know small bits and pieces about the system, but I feel like when you post a full review on the game, you will do an in-depth review. So
Yeah.
it's not half-assed, it's full-assed.
No, yeah, I try to put. It takes me when I post my stuff on Instagram. Um, I spend about 10 or 15 minutes typing out what I'm going to say about it, and I try to keep it detailed but kind of short because I know people just scroll and they'll double tap and move on. So I try to keep the reading to a somewhat minimum. And plus, I want to save all the real meat for my channel more than just on my Instagram.
Of course, yeah. That's once you fully have it up and running, let me know, and I
Hmm.
will definitely help you out with that. At least send them
Thank
your way. But if anything, every time I post your collections, as you know, I use for Collection Thursday. Everybody loves your collection, so I think you're
Yeah,
doing.
that always brings a smile on my face when you do that. That's amazing. Thank you.
No, no worries. It's definitely my pleasure to promote. I think the new generation needs to remember where we all started and just the difference. And I remember just a quick example, like walkthroughs would be a whole manual, somebody had written out of what to do in the game, but now it's you just watch a video and you'll know what to
Yeah,
do.
I mean, I'm actually surprised that strategy guides still have a place in the market.
That's I'm very surprised too. For me, it was going to a website, reading just words on words on words on words, and maybe a small picture too, but just mainly words
Yeah,
about
or
what.
some kind of a drawing of the layout of a level or something at best. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is definitely a change. But like you said, hopefully, once you have your YouTube channel up, that's where the meat of it is. I will gladly promote that, and we'll definitely have you back on here for more collections. I actually want to do a small, have like a once a week thing or two, talk about a game, kind of like what you do on Instagram, but on a video. I mean, if you'd be up to it, you know.
Absolutely, man. Just name the time and place.
Awesome. So, well, we have to fix the Cali and New York time. We'll figure it out. So for
Yeah.
now, I will see you on Instagram, and thank you very much for helping me out, bro.
Thanks, man. You have a great night.